Hi, back with another Ask Dan. So this week I get asked, what are the best strengthening exercises for runners? So really straightforward on this one, so I'll jump straight in with it in a second. But first of all, it's great that you're wanting to get strong as a runner. Not a lot of endurance athletes, runners and cyclists, and especially triathletes, who really shy away from the strength training element of it. The feedback that I've got in the past is because they are worried about putting on weight, and I think when certainly the feedback that I've had from sort of like endurance type athletes is they seem to think they're going to go do some weight, and there's all going to be sort of like bodybuilding type activities, and they're going to sort of like get huge and really have a terrible time carting that sort of stuff around. So they spend an awful lot of money and making things as light as possibly they can. But the reality is, if done correctly and you put on proper muscle and increase your strength, your power to weight ratio will go up, and ultimately any weight that you do put on, you're going to put on a little bit, the strength gains will vastly outweigh that. So definitely worth doing. Also, a stronger muscle is a more robust muscle, which basically means is the more abuse and the more hammer you can sort of give it, which basically means you can up your mileage and training volume, just purely because the muscle is a far stronger condition. So basically you ask what the best exercise is. Really simple: squats, deadlifts, and for me, I think lunges and step ups, or single leg sort of strengthening activities. So I suppose you can split them up. 2 double leg strengthening activities, squats and deadlifts, really great for sort of like glutes, hamstrings, that entire posterior chain, and getting that really strong. And then you've got a couple of single leg strengthening activities, lunges and step ups, a little bit more sort of like running or cycling specific if you like. But really good, again, sort of like to increase that strength in that hip knee extension, when you're planting your foot, etc. And that's pretty much it. So it's really straightforward. What I'll probably say to do though is, before you dive straight into any sort of serious strength training or strength training program, I would definitely spend some time and really work on getting to be comfortable lifting weights. So go and get yourself a great coach and just basically get them to teach you how to squat, teach you how to deadlift, teach you how to lunge and all this sort of stuff. If you've never done it before and you really want to teach yourself, I would start with goblet squats, which is basically holding like a dumbbell or a kettlebell in front of your chest, hold it right here, and then practice that squat movement. In terms of sets and reps, I would probably go for about 5 to 6 sets of around 12 reps. Keep it light and just really focus on getting each rep better than the last one in terms of its quality. Once you feel confident that you can squat and you can deadlift well, then reduce the reps, up the weight, and you want to reduce that down to about 5, and then just fall into a nice 5x5 program, which is going to stand you in really good stead. For me personally, I would go with squats, deadlifts, and step ups as my 3 top strengthening exercises for runners. One thing I would definitely say though is, if you were planning just to go into a gym and just do those exercises, it's going to be quite boring. And ultimately, what you want to do is think about strengthening the entire system. So what I mean is that the entire body. So, I think I've maybe mentioned this before in the past, but basically I like to think of sort of like what I consider the 5 pillars of movement, really. So you've got to pushing exercises, pulling exercises, hip dominant exercises, trunk stabilizing exercises, and movement or /aerobic movement exercises. So what I would do is have an idea where you would do 2 strength sessions a week. And then within that, you would make sure you tick all those boxes. So, for example, you would do some push exercises, some pull exercises, and that can be shoulder press. It could be dips, anything along those lines. Pull could be inverted rows, pull-ups, dumbbell rows, barbell rows, trunk exercises, anything that's going to stabilise the pelvis. And try and have a little bit of movement in there as well. So rollouts are absolutely fantastic for stabilising the trunk. And then hip dominant exercises, that's your squats and that's your deadlifts and that's your step ups. And then locomotion, you could put that in sort of like that could be sort of like your walking lunges, that could be your step ups or something along those lines. And that's what I would probably do. I would look at those 5 and try and train all those 5 movements. Each time you go into the gym, it will make for a really, really nice training session for you. Making sure you're hitting everything. You're really going to strengthen the entire system by doing this, and still have enough time during the week where you can focus on your running and your running form and technique and getting out and crunching the miles really. But ultimately getting down to it and actually strengthening the system and giving yourself the best opportunity possible to continue running and enjoying it and running faster and further, being more confident and comfortable in these positions. Definitely worth, at the early phases, just getting the technique dialed in, and it's definitely worth it. Start off with goblet squats, get comfortable doing that, move up to barbells, and don't be afraid of the weight. Get taught properly, dedicate a little bit of time at the start, dial in that technique, and then don't be afraid of it. Chuck it on. Focus on the form, really focus on the form, but don't be afraid to put it on. I think sometimes, especially when people are starting out, they're so worried about technique that they kind of hold themselves back a little bit. If the technique looks good and the technique feels good to you, then add a little bit on. There are small weight plates out there, 1.2. You can go up 1.25 on each side, 2.5 kilos. Each week, and eventually that's going to really creep up and become some serious weight, and that's sort of like my biggest advice really. So there we go. So nice and simple for this week. So yeah, top running exercise, strengthening exercises for runners: squats, deadlifts. Squats, deadlifts, step ups, lunges. Think about the 5 pillars which I've just mentioned: push, pull, hip dominant, trunk, and movement. Focus on technique, and then go for it. 2 sessions a week is what I'd say. So there we go. So back with another question next week. If you do have a question for me, put it into the comments below, and I will pick it up or email it to me. Go to the website fsdfitness.com, go to contact and put in the subject Ask Dan, and then fire that over to me with your question, and I shall get an answer back to you. Cool. I shall see you next week.